Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Luz and all I do here is answer ESL questions from free resources online. So today I chose material from ESLdiscussions.com. So I go by alphabetical order. So today the letter was G and I chose the topic gardening. So let's get started. Question 1, do you like gardening? Well, I don't hate gardening. I think gardening is a wonderful activity and I don't feel like I dislike gardening, so I probably like gardening for a lot of reasons that I probably will have to explain in the questions coming. Question 2, what is it about gardening that makes people love it? Well, I feel like gardening is one of those activities that is really human friendly. We are really connected to nature, well, most of us are, and it's very therapeutic to be close to greenery, to be close to plants. I know there are therapy sessions that happen in nature because they're very grounding. I think it's a very lovable hobby. Also, I don't think there's anything more fulfilling than watching something that is your own work developing, advancing, and in the case of plants, imagine just watching and being able to observe a seedling go from being so small to bearing fruit. I think that that would give someone a big sense of accomplishment and a very wonderful feeling, especially if whatever they're growing can be harvested. In the case of fruits or vegetables, I think it's a very wonderful process. Also, I think gardening is something that a lot of people can be proud of because it's a skill and you can start off as a novice knowing nothing about it, and then if you're really open-minded with it, you can get to learn a lot of different things. It takes some time and it's really fulfilling to see the results of your very hard work. So I think those are some of the reasons that would make it such a lovable hobby. Question 3, is gardening a hobby for young or old people? Well, I think nowadays there's an intersection of hobbies between the age groups. I don't think that nowadays we can say like this hobby is for old people and this hobby is for young people, especially given how fast the younger generations are growing. Like if you think of Gen Z, they're almost turning 30, and of course that is not very old, but they're not kids anymore. I think there's been an intersection in the type of hobbies that people want to enjoy nowadays, and I feel like gardening is one of these hobbies. I feel like for young people they would definitely want to do gardening for the sake of increasing vegetation. They're very much aware about global warming, deforestation, and all that, and they're also very hyper aware of the nutritional value of food, and they will probably want to get into gardening for the sake of them growing their own food with sustainably sourced fertilizer. They don't want to put a lot of chemicals in their food. They don't want to consume chemicals in their food. So I feel like this would be a motivation for them to get into gardening. For old people, I feel like they have a lot of time. They would have a lot of time and try to, use that time gardening because it's really easy. A lot of old people would have also bought like a farm during their lifetime, and they would have a lot of space in their backyard, for example. So for the purpose of like beautifying their garden, they would somehow get into gardening and growing all these vegetables and plants. And even for them, they wouldn't have to necessarily participate in the actual growing of crops or vegetables or even flowers. They can get someone to do it, and they can just take pride in their garden if they weren't physically able to, dig a hole in the ground or something like that. So, yeah, I don't think gardening is age specific at all. Question 4, do you need a big garden to enjoy gardening, or can someone living in an apartment also do a bit of gardening? Yeah, I agree with the last statement. I don't think gardening is plot specific. So a lot of people have a big piece of land. I know in countries like Germany, you can rent a small plot of land and you can grow whatever you want there. And I know a lot of people who think of their potted plants as them engaging or participating in gardening. So I don't think it's plot specific. Gardening can be done by anyone, anywhere. Even for people who live in urban centers and have a balcony, I see a lot of people just putting out some plants on there. For me, I would love to participate in gardening, but IKEA has already done it for me, so this is artificial, but it's green and looks really, really nice. I like it. I've definitely experimented with potted plants, but there's something I'm not getting right, especially when it comes to watering my plants. I think I tend to overwater, and as a person who travels, I'm not able to find someone who can keep up with a watering schedule. So there are many times that I've come back to my home to find plants that are not in the best of conditions. So I've given up on the hobby, but not permanently. I'll probably go back to it. But yeah, I don't think it's spot specific. Question 5. Do you think gardening is an expensive hobby? Well, I think it can be, depending on the type of plants that the people want to grow. So I would imagine a person who wants to take care of a bonsai tree. So first and foremost, I imagine the tree would be quite expensive to buy. They would probably need to get someone or hire someone to help them learn or watch, many hours of YouTube videos to kind of see what they need to be doing to keep that investment, for example. But for a person who needs to grow cucumbers, kale, and vegetables and just to keep a garden in their backyard, I don't think that that can be specifically expensive. It would probably cost them time, if we're just speaking of being expensive as a general concept, not specifically monetary. They would probably need some time to dig around, to weed, to plant, to harvest. So they would definitely be dedicating some amount of time there. But cost wise, I don't see that being overly expensive. I also know that farm implements are generally subsidized by most governments, so it's very easy for people to go into one of these home goods stores and kind of buy a potted plant or even fertilizers, to buy dirt, to buy all sorts of things, seedlings. It's probably not that expensive in a lot of countries. Question 7. Do you like looking at gardening shows on TV and reading gardening magazines? Well, not really, but I have definitely come across gardening YouTube videos, and that was when I was trying to grow some plants, potted plants. They were actually flowers. I've also experimented with succulent plants that I heard were easier to maintain, but I didn't do a really good job. So I've not specifically watched a TV show about gardening. It's just the YouTube videos that I've watched. With regards to gardening magazines, I don't think I've come across one, but would love to, especially if I decided to go back into gardening. I would definitely be looking out for these kinds of resources to help me in my journey. Question 8. Do you know anyone who is crazy about gardening? Well, yes, I do know a person. One of my friends lives in Spain and he has recently bought a small plot of land. So I'm not sure what his background with gardening is, but he seems to be doing quite well. And he is growing a lot of vegetables and sharing them with his neighbors. And we spoke a few weeks ago and he told me like his cucumbers were doing really well. His tomatoes as well were doing really well. He's also trying to grow a herb or a vegetable called arugula, and he's doing really well. And there's been like he's over harvesting it, I think, or it's growing too fast or something like that. So he's been able to make a lot of friends with his neighbors because he needs to share the vegetables in order to avoid wasting them. He also lives in a part of Spain that rains quite a lot, and he's definitely taken advantage of that, and I'm so happy for him. Every time they speak about their garden, they're really excited, smiling from ear to ear, and I'm always excited to learn about the new things that are happening on his little farm. Question 9. What kind of equipment do you need to have gardening as a hobby? Well, I think depending on the scale or the size of your plot and the type of plants you want to grow, I think you would need different types of equipment. So for example, for a person who is just wanting to garden on a small farm, I imagine they would need like a small hoe. They would probably need a machete to clear out the hedges or something like that. They would probably need like pruning shears if they were into plants, for example. They would probably need a watering hose to water the plants, regardless of what the plant is. I think that's more general. And they would definitely need heavier equipments if they were like trying to do gardening in a bigger plot of land, just to save time. So I think that is very specific on the size of the plot. Question 10. Do you think gardening is the same all over the world? Probably yes. I feel like the principles of growing cucumbers would apply all over the world. The principle of growing a rose flower as well, for example. The thing that I would expect is different are the regulations or the policies around which crops to grow, for example, at what season, because the seasons are different around the world. I would also expect the standards for fertilizers to be different from country to country, depending on how green they are in the specific country. I would also expect that the type of harvest will be definitely affected by the climate of a specific area. But more in general, I think that gardening is the same all over the world because if we're going for the same types of plants, I'm not sure that we would expect different results depending on the geographical region. Probably the yield would be higher in some places, but the principles of like gardening would probably be the same. Guys, let me know how I did down in the comments. Do you have a different opinion here? I think that was enough speculating for the day. So thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next one. Bye.